Listen to A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, a book adaptation by Oxford Reading University, Level A2.
1. This story happened in the 19th century. One evening, Ebenezer Scrooge and his assistant, Bob Cratchit, were working at their office in London. The small room was dark and cold. Scrooge tried to save money on everything, so he did not want to use up too much wood for the fire. No one liked old Scrooge, and no one ever greeted him on the street. Scrooge had an awful personality. He hated spending money, and he hated people. He was mean to everybody. The sign on the door of the office said Marley and Scrooge. Many years ago, Jacob Marley and Ebenezer Scrooge were colleagues. But then Marley died. The door opened, and Scrooge's nephew Fred entered. He was smiling and looking happy. "Merry Christmas to you, Uncle," he said. "Why exactly are you so cheerful?" asked Scrooge. "There's nothing cheerful about Christmas." "But it is a holiday, a reason to celebrate," said Fred. "It is a time when people open their hearts and let love in." "It is also a time to spend too much money and to miss work," complained Scrooge. "I think Christmas shouldn't exist." Fred realized that it was impossible to change his uncle's opinion. Instead, he said, "Let's celebrate together. Come to dinner tomorrow." Scrooge refused, and Fred was a little sad. "Why don't you ever accept my invitations?" he asked. "Because I don't want to. Now go away and keep your Christmas to yourself," shouted Scrooge. "I don't understand why you are so rude, Uncle, but it is your decision," said Fred. "Merry Christmas." Fred left. Later, several people came. They asked Scrooge to give them money for charity, but Scrooge, of course, didn't give them anything. When the working day was over, Scrooge looked at Bob and asked, "You want to take a day off tomorrow, I suppose?" "If it is all right, sir," replied Bob. "It isn't all right, and it isn't fair, because you will not work, and yet I will have to pay you," said Scrooge. "But there is nothing I can do. Have your day off, but be here early the next day after Christmas." 2. Scrooge went home. He stopped at the door of his house searching for his key. Then he looked up and shook in fear. On the door there used to be a knocker, but now, instead of the knocker, was Jacob Marley's face. The next moment, the face was no longer there. "Maybe I am just imagining things," thought Scrooge. The old man lived alone. Only one room in the house had furniture. That was his bedroom. It was cold and dark, just like the office. Scrooge sat very close to the small fire. Suddenly he heard a strange sound. It was like the ringing of metal, and it grew louder and louder. Then a figure walked right through the wall. It was Jacob Marley. Scrooge was certain that it was his dead colleague. He wore his usual clothing, but there was a chain around his body. His hair stood up on his head, and he looked very tired. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" asked Scrooge. "When I was alive, I was your partner, Jacob Marley," he replied. "Now I am a ghost. I am here to help you, so that you don't repeat my mistakes." Scrooge was very surprised. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Since I died, I have known no peace," the ghost said. "I carry these chains around the world with me. Now, I see all the pain that never affected me when I was alive. I never gave money to the poor. I never cared about other people. And now I am paying for it." Scrooge was shaking. "Am I going to be like you when I die?" he asked. "Perhaps," replied Marley. "But you still have hope. Soon 3 ghosts will visit you. Listen to them carefully, and you might have a chance to save yourself. The first ghost will come the next night at 1 o'clock. And I will leave you now. Goodbye, Ebenezer." Marley took a couple of steps back and disappeared. Scrooge was alone in his room. All he heard was the sound of the wind blowing outside. Soon he fell asleep.
Hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more audiobooks like this.
3. When Scrooge woke up, it was midnight. How strange, Scrooge thought to himself. He clearly remembered going to bed at 2 in the morning. He also remembered Marley's promise. At 1 o'clock, a ghost was going to visit him. When it was time for the ghost to arrive, at first nothing happened. "Aha!" thought Scrooge. "I fell asleep and it was all a dream." Suddenly the curtains of his bed opened, and he saw a strange man in front of him. He was small, dressed in white, and an unusual light surrounded him. "Who are you?" asked Scrooge. "I am the ghost of Christmas past. Your past," replied the man. "What do you want from me?" asked Scrooge. The ghost took him by the hand. "Get up and go with me," he said. Scrooge did not want to go out in the cold, but he had no choice. They went through the wall, and suddenly they were not in London anymore. They landed in a small village. "I remember this place," cried Scrooge. "I lived here when I was a boy." Some people walked past them. Scrooge greeted them, but they did not react. "They are memories. They cannot see us," the ghost explained. "Let's visit the school." They went to the village school and entered a classroom. There, a child sat at the desk reading a book. It was young Ebenezer Scrooge. He was alone on Christmas night. "Oh, poor boy," said Scrooge, crying. "My father left me there because he didn't want to spend Christmas with me. I was so sad." After that, they traveled through other memories. Scrooge saw his dead sister, the mother of his nephew Fred. Then they visited a party at Mr. Nigel Fezziwig's house. Mr. Nigel Fezziwig used to be Scrooge's boss. He was always nice to Scrooge. Ebenezer thought about his own assistant, Bob Cratchit. How rude he was to poor Bob. The ghost showed him one more memory. A young couple stood on a bridge. The man was young Ebenezer Scrooge. He looked happy, almost excited. The woman was crying. "There is something in this world that you love more than me," she said to the man. "It is money." "But, Belle," he replied, "I love you. I just need to earn some money for us. Then we will be happy together and have a comfortable life." "When we were younger, I was more important to you than silver and gold," the woman replied. "Now it is different. You cannot love a poor girl like me, I know it." "Ghost, take me away from here. I cannot watch it any longer," said Scrooge. He was really hurt. But one more scene was left for Scrooge to see. The ghost showed him Belle and her husband. They had beautiful children and they were happy. They talked about Scrooge and how sad and lonely he was with all his money. Then the happy family disappeared. It was dark, and Scrooge was in his own bedroom again. 4. It was almost 1 o'clock again. Scrooge lay in his bed trying to focus on sounds, lights, and other signs of a ghost. When the time came, he noticed a strange light coming from another room. Then he heard a voice calling him and asking him to enter. When Scrooge came in, he could not recognize the room. The walls were decorated for Christmas. In the middle of the room stood a huge table with all sorts of Christmas dishes on it. A large, happy-looking man in green clothing sat at the table. "Come in," said the ghost loudly. "I am the ghost of Christmas Present." "Take me where you want, ghost," said Scrooge. "I think you have a lesson for me, and I am ready to learn." "Touch my clothes, then," said the ghost. Immediately they were outside again. It was the night before Christmas in London. A lot of people were in the street. They smiled and chatted and looked very happy. Here and there Scrooge heard laughter and voices saying "Merry Christmas." They walked along narrow streets and reached a poor area. The ghost led Scrooge to one particular house. It was the house of Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's assistant. They were just in time to see Bob enter with a small boy on his shoulders. The child was Bob's youngest son, Tiny Tim. Tim's right leg was weak and thin. It was difficult for him to walk. When his father was not able to carry him, Tiny Tim walked with a stick. Mrs. Cratchit served dinner. Soon everyone was sitting around the table, enjoying their meal and their time together. Bob was very careful with Tiny Tim. He looked like he was afraid of losing the boy. Scrooge watched this poor family with a heavy heart. "Please tell me the boy will live," he said to the ghost. "If their situation doesn't change, he will die," was the response. The ghost was not smiling anymore. "Let's drink to the health of the man who paid for our dinner, Mr. Scrooge," said Bob suddenly. "Paid for our dinner?" said Mrs. Cratchit angrily. "He doesn't pay you enough. He makes you work too much. I would like to tell this awful old man what I think about him." "My dear, it is Christmas," said Bob. "Let's not argue today." Scrooge was so sad that he was about to cry. The next house that they visited belonged to his nephew Fred. Fred and his wife and his friends were at the table, eating and talking about Scrooge. "And he said that Christmas shouldn't exist," said Fred, laughing. "He is a very miserable man, and I feel sorry for him," his wife replied. "I agree," said Fred. "He doesn't know how to be happy. I invite him to dinner every year, and he always refuses to come. Maybe he will change his mind one day." After dinner, the party guests sang songs and played fun games. Scrooge was really interested, and he laughed along with them. "I feel like I am young again," said Scrooge. "I wish I was there with him right now." He turned around, but the ghost wasn't there anymore.
Do you like this story? Send it to your friends to enjoy it together.
5. As the clock struck midnight, Scrooge saw a dark figure coming toward him. It was dressed in dark clothing, and Ebenezer could not see its face. He felt weak at the knees because the figure was so cold, quiet, and scary. "Are you the ghost of the future?" asked Scrooge. The ghost did not respond. "Well, I think you are," Scrooge continued. "I am afraid of you more than I was of all the other ghosts. But I know that I need to see what you want to show me." The ghost raised his hand with long fingers and pointed straight in front of him. Then he moved slowly in that direction, and Scrooge followed his dark shape. They were in the center of London, and Scrooge heard some businessmen talking. "I don't know much about it, actually," said one of them, "but I know that he is dead." "What happened to his money?" the other man asked. "Who knows, really," replied the first one, "but he definitely didn't give it to me." "So even after his death, he kept all his money to himself, didn't he?" The men laughed. Scrooge knew these people, but he did not know who they were talking about. He didn't understand why the ghost wanted him to hear their conversation. But the third ghost certainly had his reasons. Then they went to Bob Cratchit's house. It was the day of Christmas again, but this time the Cratchits didn't look happy. "Dad is late today," said one of Bob's daughters. "He walks slowly now," said Mrs. Cratchit. "He used to walk much faster, even with Tiny Tim on his shoulders. But it is different now." Soon Bob returned home. He smiled, but he looked sad and tired. He talked to his wife and children, and then went upstairs. There were several beds in the room. On one of them lay Tiny Tim's little stick, but there was no sign of the boy anywhere in the house. Bob sat down in the bed and started to cry. Scrooge realized what was the matter. He didn't pay Bob enough money. The Cratchits were very poor and couldn't take Tim to the doctor. And now the little boy was dead. This thought caused Scrooge a lot of pain. "Ghost, I think it will soon be time for us to say goodbye," he said. "But before we do, can you tell me who those businessmen were talking about?" The quiet ghost led Ebenezer through the streets of London again. Soon they were in a graveyard. The ghost pointed at one of the gravestones. Scrooge did not want to look at it. "Please tell me, is the future really going to be like this?" he asked. "Do I have a chance to change it?" The ghost still pointed at the stone. Scrooge had no other choice. He took a look at the stone. When he saw the name on it, his heart started beating faster. It was the grave of Ebenezer Scrooge. He died alone, and no one was sad about it. "I don't want it all to end like this. I will change. I promise that I will change," cried Scrooge. But the ghost was already gone. 6. Scrooge woke up in his bed. "I need to do something. I shouldn't let it happen," he thought. He got dressed very quickly and went out. "What day is it today?" he asked a boy in the street. "Christmas Day, sir," replied the boy. "Then I still have time," said Scrooge to himself. He went to a store and bought the largest chicken he could find. He asked a boy in the street to send the chicken to the Cratchits, and paid him a lot of money for it. Then he joined his nephew Fred for dinner. The next day, when Bob came to work a bit late, Scrooge was not angry. Instead, he told Bob that he was going to raise his salary. Scrooge kept his promise. He became a different person, cheerful and nice. The change in his behavior surprised everyone. Scrooge started to give a lot of money to the poor. He helped Tiny Tim and became like a second father to him. Tim's health got better. Scrooge always remembered the ghost's lessons and lived a long, happy life, helping everyone around him. We all should learn from this story. Friends and family are the most important things in life. Let us never forget it, especially on Christmas Day.
For more English books for all levels, check out appewa.com. And now, watch this video. It will help you improve your English right now.